Chase Thomas podcast. My nephew needs me to record. See, I already hate it. I hate it.
All right, hello, and welcome back to another episode of the Chase Thomas Podcast, where I'm still the aforementioned Chase Thomas, coming to you live from Knoxville, Tennessee, Everything School HQ. Joining me down there in Decatur, Georgia, my good friend, fellow University of North Georgia alumni, Matt Green. Matt, good evening, sir. How are you?
Everything School HQ, sir. It's good to be back. I don't know if you've seen the Bulldogs look a little bit better in basketball this year.
Tennessee's number 2 in KenPom. What are we talking about? Tennessee's 7-0.
I'm not comparing them to Tennessee.
Well, you made it Everything School
program.
HQ like raised an eyebrow, and it's like and you're throwing out basketball when Tennessee basketball might be the best team in the country right now.
We win
What are we doing?
championships in all kinds of sports at Georgia here. You know, you guys got one in like the last couple decade and a half. What? I mean, this is nice when you just got, but
baseball might go back to back. They might never stop winning national titles.
They might never lose another game. But no, they got the win over St. John's, big time win. Bulldogs, baby steps. You know, they're a different level. Tennessee's trying to win national championships or I guess I should say try to go to Final Fours, because that's what they still haven't done, right?
What is this?
That's true, right?
Yeah, but they're literally number 2 in KenPom right now.
Yeah,
they're 7-0
program.
They're running things right now.
They're just trying to get back to the tourney. That's the level of program they're at.
Unbelievable.
And they might be. They're looking pretty solid this year. I wasn't trying to start this by throwing a bunch of shade.
This man started off a college football rivalry week pod with Georgia Tech, Tennessee, Vanderbilt, with a CFP berth on the line, with some Georgia basketball is actually not that bad. That is how he wanted to start this program the day before Turkey Day. Unbelievable stuff from Matt Green.
It's because of the Everything School HQ intro. You know, I haven't commented on the Everything School stuff in a while, so I don't know. It didn't sit right with me.
You've just been like grinding the Asa Newell tape lately, and you're just like, Georgia, they're built different this year.
Absolutely. They are built different. They have actual big time. They have actual 4-star players along the roster now. But Mike White is making some plays. Georgia's at least improving. I'll be honest. I've been watching a bunch of the games. It's still football season. But
oh my God,
I see that they've been better.
Have you watched one full game?
Not a full game. I've just watched them here and there. It's football season, sir.
And he opened the pod with this.
I'm strict when it comes to it. It's still football season. I have a fantasy basketball team, and I probably haven't watched a full NBA game this year. It's just you see the stats, see the box scores, but I mean,
you opened the door here, though. I didn't do this to you. You opened the door. You were like, let's start off with like taking a shot at Tennessee basketball when they're at their peak right now. And then you're like the Everything School HQ. Tennessee baseball, basketball, and football are top 10 all across the board. Yeah, Everything School HQ applies right now. This is not the time to attack Everything School HQ right now, Matt Green. There are times to attack Everything School HQ.
They're pretty good at everything. It's solid.
They're coming off a national championship in the most recent sport.
Hey, once they've made a Final Four, then I think they can talk to...
What if they make a CFP and a Final Four this year, and then go back to the College World Series? At what point do you go, all right,
that'll be
they might be
impressive.
cooking with something.
And then what? The women's basketball...
They're rolling, too.
Is having a good start to the season, to Lady Vols.
Yeah.
You might say they're pretty good at everything at that school.
Wow.
All
People are listening to this on their way to Thanksgiving, lunch, and dinner, and you're over here.
It's not Georgia-Tennessee week, but it is rivalry week.
Goodness gracious. Well, Matt Green, college football CFP rankings for Week 13 came out. Right now, Tennessee and Georgia, speaking of Tennessee and Georgia, getting matched up at the 8-9 spot if the CFP started this week. But as you and I talked about before you started here, that will not happen because Georgia is going to play another game in the SEC title game, which could give them a bye if they win. And if they lose, who knows where they fall. But the likelihood of Tennessee and Georgia getting matched up in the first round with Tennessee going to Athens is, I would say, slim to none. So a lot of people are talking about that
I will
coming out, but yeah.
If Georgia loses the SEC championship, I think you could justify keeping them right there at 8 and not moving them
But
back.
Tennessee would move up in this scenario.
But if Georgia's the only team for Tennessee to move up, like in front of, like, I mean, Georgia did beat them on the field, and,
Right.
and maybe you make that precedent of you're not going to punish the team that played the extra game, because Georgia proved in the regular season they were better than Tennessee. So that extra game doesn't now make Tennessee better than Georgia. So I think there is a chance if Georgia loses the SEC championship, they wind up with Tennessee. But
you'd be going to Tennessee in that scenario. Tennessee wouldn't be going to Athens.
I think they would. Georgia has to be a higher seed than Tennessee.
I don't think so, because the 3 loss, you saw Georgia get left out entirely last year. They were undefeated and they lose the SEC title game.
That's a different scenario, though, because Alabama is the one that beat Georgia, and they were one of the teams that jumped.
I get what you're saying, but I think the committee would actually lean towards Tennessee hosting with Georgia coming off a loss.
It would be interesting. I don't know what they're going to do with the losers of these conference championships.
Yeah.
I will say,
true.
Like, one of my biggest takeaways from watching this the other night was just that there's so like few contenders for this 12-team playoff. Like, I think everyone's up in arms about Alabama being number 13, and you're just like, well, who are you going to put them behind? Like, yeah, you could put Ole Miss ahead of Alabama, sure, like one spot, but like they beat South Carolina. Yeah, Arizona State 9-2 in the Big 12. Like, yeah, maybe is Tulane better than Alabama? Like, no, probably not. Like, so I don't know. There's like a limited number of teams to move down. Like, Alabama's not a contender right now, but I mean, how low can you really put them? 13 seems like 13, 14. That seems reasonable. Like I think that was one thing that I took away is just like two things can be true. The 12-team playoff can be a lot of fun, and it can also be completely unnecessary. Like, this feels like a regular college football season that, like, in a normal year, Georgia is 9-2 with this schedule. Like, they would be an SEC championship win away from getting in the playoff, in a 14 playoff, because the SEC is the SEC. It's like, oh, we can take a 2-loss conference champ from the SEC. You know, there would be justification for it. Like, right now, we'd be looking at, like, the winner of Georgia Texas gets in the CFP. The winner of Ohio State Oregon is in, and if Oregon loses, you know, maybe they get that 4 seed or something like that. Hopefully not, because then Ohio State Oregon, you get the rematch in the first round. And then you'd have like the last 3 spots being kind of debated with Penn State, Notre Dame, and Miami. It's like that would be like, and obviously maybe Oregon getting one of those spots. Like, that would be a pretty normal college football season, and I don't think anyone really even thinks Miami and Penn State or Notre Dame are necessarily that good. You know what I mean? And they're potentially getting one of those, that 3 or 4 seeds. So it just feels like a year where, you know, is Tennessee, like, is it a normal year of college football? Does this Tennessee team feel like a national title contender? It's like there's been a lot of poor offensive performances. You've lost to Arkansas. You lost to Georgia. It's like they've been a really good team, finished top 10. Like, is SMU a title contender? No. Like, I see like the 12 teams they have, and it's like it feels like so few of these teams feel like national championship teams. And I'm not even like excluding Georgia from that. Like, Georgia's looked really flawed at times this year, and that's the potential SEC champion. So I don't know. There's just a lot of flawed teams, it kind of feels like this year.
Yeah, and I think we're gonna have to change our brain to, like, if you're a big time college baseball fan, and I've kind of talked about this a little bit. If you're a big time college baseball fan, if you're a big time college basketball fan, this is normal for you. I think you're just like, well, yeah, like March Madness, the best team rarely wins. Sometimes they will. College World Series, Ole Miss snuck in.
Sometimes they will.
Sometimes they will. But in College World Series, Ole Miss was the last SEC team to make the run. They got hot at the very end. 2 years ago now? The year before LSU, so 2022. Yeah, because Mississippi State won in 21. Ole Miss won in 22. LSU in 23.
Arkansas in there somewhere?
No, Tennessee 24. Arkansas, it's been a little bit. They've been number 1 a lot. Arkansas had a really, really good team in, was it 22 or 21 that got knocked out? They had a big time closer that was unhittable. But anyway, all that being said, I'm happy to talk some college baseball. Like, college baseball's a delight. We can go down the rabbit hole. But my long story short, in terms of why I'm bringing up college baseball and college basketball to the point that you're making, is I think that's what we're going to get with the college football playoff. Is I think there will be some years where the 3rd or 4th SEC team will win it all, and you're like, whoa, the best team did not win, and there'll be people upset the best team did not win, the team that got hot at the very end, where Tennessee's offense might just click the last month of the year, and you're like, who is this? Because I have 12 games of data where it's like this offense does not have this explosion, and Nico just goes out of his mind, plays like a 5-star for a month, and Tennessee wins it all. That's in play if they make the dance. I think that is what you're going to see sometimes, and then I think you're going to see sometimes where you're going to have a Georgia 2022, 2021 year where it's like, yeah, you have to play more games, but the best team, they just still they bulldoze everybody on their way to a national title like LSU did last year. Tennessee did this year in baseball, where they the number 1 overall seed going in, and they won it all anyway. And that hadn't happened in 25 years. So
that's enough.
Well, I'm just saying, like, that is what's going to happen. I think with the college football playoff expanding to 12 and then eventually 14, whatever, is I think some years the best team overall will win and win comfortably. And then there'll be some years where a team that we looked at all year long as like really flawed and like, oh, do we really have 12 good teams? Do we really have 14 good teams who deserve to be in this thing? And then the third or fourth best Big Ten or SEC school wins it all. And you're like, that didn't feel like they were the best team. And the best team got upset early on, but hey, they won the dance. But I also think we'll enjoy it. Like, I have enjoyed the College World Series. I've enjoyed March Madness every year. I think we're all going to enjoy the college football playoff, but I do think college football fans, it's going to take some time getting used to the fact that there will be some teams, some years, that win it all, and you're not like, oh, that felt like the best team in college football. Like, that's just how it's going to be sometimes.
I will also say those sports
Does that make
general, sense? No, for sure. I mean, that's what's going to happen. Just the probability of more outcomes, but those sports in general, the best team wins a lower percentage of the time than football. So I think you're still going to see, and obviously those teams that get the first round bye are already in the final 8. So, you're going to see maybe those teams lose in the final 4 or something like that. So you're obviously going to see that happen occasionally, but I still think those elite programs in any format are still going to be elite. That's why I've heard so much talk about the 4-team playoff and why this is so much better than the 4-team playoff. And I don't know. It's just this, I feel like way too much. We overreacted to Clemson and Alabama just being so elite for like 6-7 years in a row. And it's like, and Ohio State's a big time program that was also in the playoff a bunch of those years too. It's like we just in any format, those Clemson and Alabama teams in the 2010s would have been going to the national championship game. Like, they were the best in the country. And so I feel like too much was made of that. And yeah, now we have 12 teams and we have potential 3-loss teams getting in the like national championship now. Like, I guess that's good for the sport. I don't know, but in general, college football, you always had to be near, you almost had to be perfect back in the day. And then it's like the 4-team just had a little room for error, and you didn't have to be completely perfect. And I always feel like that was a good thing. And now at 12, it could get a little chaotic. I don't know what's going to happen, but this has been a chaotic season. So maybe this is a good thing.
I mean, I think it will get chaotic. I just don't think it will end up being a bad thing. I think we'll end up being okay with it once the games happen, is my gut. I think the games are going to be really good. Now, I am curious how the portal is going to work here when it opens up in a couple weeks, and how that works with the playoff and things like that. Now, that is still a TBD that I have circled, but...
I mean, what the national championship's like January 20th or something, right? Like, I don't know what they're going to... You're going to have to be in the portal, and I don't know. Something that's going to be a disaster.
Yeah, no one's really talking about it. It's kind of weird to me that's not just like this tidal wave that we're waiting on, because we're going to see some crazy stuff, I think.
Yeah, and it is kind of weird that no one's talking about it, because we saw Malik Murphy a year ago transfer from Duke, and it's like that was with a different calendar that was kind of reasonable. Now it's, I don't know. My prediction, honestly, is that the academic calendars for anyone who wants to play FBS football will like get pushed back, like to like the last week of January or something like that, in the name of college football, like, because college football they're the king when it comes to universities.
We shall see, sir. Week 14, rivalry week, sir.
Hold on, sir.
Oh, yeah.
We have a game here.
Would you rather? Excuse me.
Would
we have
you
a game
rather?
here.
Yeah, would you rather? Let's play a little game. Let's make things interesting. A lot of talk about the 1 versus 5 seed in the playoffs. Would you rather get Ohio State's number 5 seed and play Arizona State in the first round and then Boise State in the second round, or get the bye week and get the winner of Georgia Tennessee like Oregon with that, and that's with
Ohio
the 1
State.
seed.
The 5 seed's a big time. Like the 5 seed's great in the way this tournament bracket's set up. The 5 seed's fantastic.
Biggest flaw of this whole tournament is that the 5 and 6 seeds have like pretty solid roads to the semifinals.
Does Ohio State and Oregon try and tank in the Big Ten title game to see who can avoid the bye and get the 5-12?
Well, that's another thing. Ohio State loses this and has 2 losses. What does that do to the seeds? Does Notre Dame or Penn State get a higher seed or something now? I don't know.
Yeah.
I wouldn't think so, but
also we got the nonsense we even talked about, but like Boise still getting a bye. What are we doing?
Yeah,
what are we doing?
I say, what is Arizona State's at 16?
Yeah.
So that's still in like striking distance. And what is Colorado's at 25? That might be who they get, or BYU's at 19.
Iowa State's right there.
That might be Iowa State is right in there. So I feel like ultimately that'll be enough to jump the Boise State, but I don't know. Don't even get me started on Boise State. It's trash that they're potentially going to get a top 4 seed for some of the teams they've beaten this year. It hadn't even been that tough a Mountain West schedule too.
Yeah.
If you look at it, like UNLV is one of the top teams, but like they haven't even played, I think, like 3 of the other top 5 teams in the conference or something. No, grinds my gears. It looked good versus Oregon, could have beat them, but I don't know.
You and I will be cheering hard for the Rebels in the Mountain
West.
Game.
That's the best win, is the close loss to Oregon. Would you rather, as a Tennessee fan, play on the road at Penn State, at Notre Dame, or at Georgia or Texas, the loser of Georgia, Texas?
Just that one off, not like in terms of like how that would go, like seating wise post that, or just like in terms of fun venue, or like
Let's
we think you can
win. Take all of it into account. Tennessee's best chances to win, a matchup you want to see, whatever it is. Penn State, Notre Dame, or let's just say Texas.
Best chance to win, I would say at Penn State. I'll take my chances, like the James Franklin game there. I think Tennessee could win that game. Drew Aller a little bit shaky at quarterback. I think that offense still has some problems. I could see Tennessee being in it at Penn State.
That's interesting.
I think the coolest venue to go to would be Notre Dame. Tennessee going to Notre Dame would be really cool. I don't think Tennessee would win at Notre Dame. I think it'd be close, but I think that'd be the coolest first round matchup for Tennessee, or I'm pulling for Notre Dame coming here. I think Notre Dame coming to Tennessee in the first round would be a lot of fun, or Penn State coming here.
No chance. Notre Dame's getting a home playoff game, or they're missing the playoff.
No, I mean, I don't think so. I think if Notre Dame loses to USC, I think they're still in. The way the seeds are looking. I think Notre Dame's still in, because there's just been too much chaos around them. Like they only have that one loss. I think if they lost close to USC, I think Notre Dame's in.
2 loss Notre Dame or 3 loss Bama, they go in Notre Dame.
I think they're going Notre Dame.
That's probably true. I feel like Penn State would definitely be the best atmosphere. Like I would worry about that matchup for Tennessee going in, like the way they feel like there's 2 teams are built kind of similarly.
That offense isn't scary, man. They're struggling with Minnesota. They didn't look good against Ohio State. Like I'm not really worried about that one.
I don't know. It feels like Tennessee feels like a Big Ten team. They'd want to play that 2 yards in a cloud.
But that's what I'm saying.
Dust,
like Tennessee
right?
could play Penn State like Minnesota played them. Like Tennessee could be in that game. They could win in Happy Valley. Is I guess my point. Is I think they would have the best chance of winning in Happy Valley of those 4.
Yeah, we shall see. Let's just hope we don't see Georgia Tech. Indiana, in Penn State, Indiana. I don't hate in the first round because they didn't play each other. But at the same time, I want the Big Ten to be playing other conferences, like in the national tournament. You know, I don't want SEC teams to be facing first round, that sort of thing. And then if one team, it feels like this 12 teams is kind of set, right? It feels like a really clean kind of, no one really disagrees with it. Like anyone who's on the outside looking in, like the first team out is Clemson. Like they're not making that big of a gripe about not being in. So this feels clean, too clean, if you ask me. Something's going to happen. So if anyone in the current field loses and we get one spot open up, would you rather the winner of Clemson, South Carolina get in the playoff, or Bama or Ole Miss?
What do you mean by would I rather?
Who deserves the last spot?
Who deserves it?
Yeah. Who should be the last team in the playoff? I think those are the four: Alabama, Ole Miss, and then the winner of Clemson, South Carolina.
I mean, I think South Carolina is playing the best down the stretch. Like you know me and how I've talked about South Carolina. The problem with South Carolina is who they've lost to. So I just can't.
Those two teams.
Yeah, like you just can't. Like, I'm sorry, South Carolina fans. We've talked you up on this program. It's a great finish. You lost to the wrong teams. Like you did. So you got to X them out. Clemson, frauds. We'll get into them later. They're out. I think the most deserving is still Ole Miss, because I still think Ole Miss, their win against Georgia was more impressive to me than Alabama's win against Georgia. Like, Georgia almost came all the way back and beat Alabama. I think Ole Miss is
easily
better than Alabama right now. I think it's just that this season's going to haunt Lane, and I think Lane and Charlie Weiss and company have done a really good job. I think Ole Miss's top version of themselves is still a team that could win a national title, and I still think they're the best of those four. But I think if it comes down to it, I think Alabama gets in, but I think Ole Miss should of those four.
It feels like with the resume, yeah, like you said, with Alabama and Ole Miss having the head-to-head over South Carolina, that's too big to ignore. But like the college basketball, at least in the past, has talked about like how you're playing, like recent form, right? And South Carolina is clearly playing better right now than those other two. I think it's weird how like there was that logjam. Obviously, it made sense with Alabama and Ole Miss being ahead of Georgia, but there was never really any distinction for why Alabama was ahead of Ole Miss. Like, there's no SEC West. They didn't beat Ole Miss. So
yeah,
I think their resume is ultimately better, but they've also, like, they have more bad losses. Like, they've got blown out by Oklahoma, like lost at Vanderbilt. I know Vanderbilt's better, but it's still Vanderbilt. At least Ole Miss has 3 close losses, even if Kentucky and Florida aren't good teams this year. It's at least, like, I don't know, in an LSU team that obviously Alabama destroyed, but an LSU team that like literally led for 0 seconds in the game, but won in overtime and the final score. Like, it was at least 3 close losses versus Alabama getting blown out. And in the Vanderbilt, they didn't get blown out, obviously, by Vanderbilt, but it was like a dominating performance. It kind of felt like by Vanderbilt, the way they like ran out like the last like 6 minutes of the clock or something. Like, Alabama couldn't get a stop. It was just, I don't know. I think I'm with you. Being judged on this rankings, I mean, Clemson and South Carolina, this is a big final data point for both of these teams where they sit right now. If Clemson gets a win over the 14th, 15th ranked team, I think they have probably the best argument for getting that last spot, right?
Do you think so, though?
I mean, I don't think they're that good of a team, no.
Yeah.
But the 2 losses versus the 3 losses, like, I think that's the 3 losses just feels like a lot. Like, I don't know. Like, obviously, it's a tougher schedule, and Clemson, I think, has lost to the 2 best teams they've played to this point. But I don't know. I think it would be tough to ignore the 2 losses. But the idea of the ACC getting 3 teams in, I don't know, seems sacrilegious or something.
Especially because it's the schedule. Like, you look at their schedule, and it's just, and how Clemson's looked against good teams, and how close Miami's come week over week of losing. And I mean, we'll see how SMU closes and what SMU. I mean, Miami, we're going to get into there. I mean, they're going to Syracuse, who was a 3-loss team this weekend, and who knows how that goes with Fran Brown and company. So, I don't know. I think it's like you said. This is very clean right now, and my gut is last week was the red wedding from Game of Thrones for a lot of teams, but I think this weekend will be a lot cleaner. I don't think we're gonna hit. I don't think, my gut is we don't have chaos again this Saturday and this Friday, Saturday.
Famous last words, sir.
I know.
But I mean, the fact that the committee has Clemson at 12, I think, now that I think about it, I don't think it's any question they would be the team that got in of these 3.
Well, it doesn't matter because Clemson's getting beat by South Carolina this week.
I mean, that definitely could happen, but I'm just saying, like, this would be their best win of the whole season. So if you currently think they're ahead of Alabama or Ole Miss, like, this would be their best win, and you'd have to keep them ahead of Alabama, Ole Miss. And
but also Clemson's missing an ACC title game.
Precedent.
Unless Miami or SMU gets upset. So it's like, Clemson can't get in. You're not putting 3 ACC. You just can't. Like, you cannot put 3 ACC teams in. You just can't do it.
I mean, if you got 3 that have 2 losses or less, I don't know.
Well, I don't think that. I guess they could still. Yeah, that'd be some
'Cause
chaos.
SMU or Miami could be getting their second loss in the conference championship.
Yeah.
Or they could be getting it this week. Who knows?
Week 14, Matt Green. Where do things stand in our last week of the regular season in our pick'em, sir?
All right. Last week of the regular season, I got a 1-game lead on you overall, sir. 104-53 to your 103-54. That's a 66% on the season. Then against the spread, I got an 8-game lead on you. I'm 79-77-1, just over 500. And then you are 71-85-1. So right down there, 46%. We can get that back up to 50. And then Zeus on the season, 12-9 with his home dogs of the week, and had Auburn last week. So he's coming off a win. We'll see what Zeus has got in store this week.
I love it. I think I have an idea of where Zeus is headed in his home dog of the week, but we shall see.
Oh, do you?
First up here, Tennessee, 11-point home or road favorites in Vanderbilt, in Nashville. CFP berth on the line for Tennessee. Win and you're in. Vanderbilt already got their 6 wins, so they are bowling regardless. What say you, Matt Green?
This is a really interesting game, right? Because I guess I'm like debating on how interesting of a game it is, because it shouldn't be that interesting, right? It's Tennessee Vanderbilt. Tennessee's a top 10 team, but Tennessee on the road this year has not been very good. So they're 1-2 on the road this year. I feel like I just don't respect Vanderbilt Stadium. Like is it called Vanderbilt Stadium? I literally don't even know the name of it. I don't respect. So. I think it is Vanderbilt Stadium, right? I think that's the name.
Is it?
But see, that's what I'm saying.
First Bank Stadium.
What is it?
First Bank Stadium. I was like, I didn't think.
Oh, they did. That's new. I think it was Vanderbilt Stadium, because I don't know how long that's been that, but I know they got the renovations and all that. But see, Vaught Hemingway, and these other Williams Bryce.
2022 is the last year of Vanderbilt Stadium.
Okay, I just don't respect like the home field advantage. So I don't think this is gonna like the same kind of like road type of game. I think Tennessee. The fact that South Carolina game happened a couple years ago almost seems like a good thing, that like this is their chance, take care of business. They're in the college football playoff. Like I wouldn't be surprised if like this is one of their best offensive performances of the season. Like obviously LSU didn't blow out Vanderbilt last week, but I think Tennessee's a better team than LSU. So I'm not buying Vanderbilt keeping this one close. I mean, maybe it's respectable, because this Tennessee offense hasn't been anything great this year. But I'm going to say Tennessee wins this one by 2 touchdowns. So maybe I'm going to say 27-13. It could be more, but I just don't see Vanderbilt like consistently moving the ball against this Tennessee defense.
Interesting. I didn't think you were going to go this way. So we're going to disagree out of the gate.
Oh.
I think
Vanderbilt upset City?
No, I don't think Vanderbilt's going to win this game. But I do think Vanderbilt's going to cover. 11 is too many points on the road for Tennessee. Vanderbilt.
Oh, man.
I wrote about this today. One of the things that's super interesting to me about this matchup, and why I think Tennessee is going to need some elite special teams to steal this on the road. Like we talked about, Vanderbilt's lost 3 of their last 4. Diego Pavia banged up down the stretch here. Vanderbilt, a lot of guys in their injury report here down the stretch. They're banged up. They play a really physical style. It was worse, clearly, to get Vanderbilt earlier in the year than at this latter portion with their style of offense and everything else. Just a physical team, and playing an SEC schedule, I think, has taken its toll. But they've had a great year. But I've gone back and forth on whether or not Vanderbilt's offense is a bad matchup for Tennessee. And I think what makes it a potential bad matchup, because if you look at the way Tennessee lost at Georgia versus the way Tennessee lost at Arkansas this year, 2 completely different games. So this is something I wrote about today. Like Georgia, 40 dropbacks for Carson Beck, right? Georgia Carson Beck did not get sacked in that game. Tennessee did not get home at all. Georgia attacked Tennessee over the middle with their tight ends. Oscar Delp had a great first half. Urasek had a big game as well. But they weren't able to run on Tennessee. No, Arkansas in the last little bit was able to run on Tennessee. Braylon Russell, the freshman, he had 2 big runs to seal the game and put Arkansas in a position to beat Tennessee late. But
basically
you
put
look at
one
this,
drive together.
yeah, and Georgia did it in a very different way. And I think the way Georgia beat Tennessee is not even close to the way that Vanderbilt can. So I think if you're going to play this game, if you're Vanderbilt, the way to do it is ball control. Because if you remember in that Arkansas game, Arkansas had the ball for the first, they took the ball and they had the ball for the first 9 minutes of the game against Tennessee. Tennessee had the ball barely at all. It was 3-0 Arkansas at the half. And it was like gone like that. We were like, whoa, what just happened? Because Arkansas,
it was a 3-0 that felt like they could have been up like 17-0 or something, right? Like 14.
Yes, they went for it on 4. They I think missed a field goal. They were very aggressive. Or they made a field. What they did is they went all the way down the field for 9 minutes and then kicked a 20-yard field goal at the goal line where you're like, all right, what?
Yeah.
And you're like, that seems like that's going to come back to bite you. But all that being said, they withstood the storm. But part of what happened in that game that people might overlook is Tennessee got 3 punts in the second half from Arkansas. Arkansas didn't punt in the first half. But in the second half, Tennessee returned 0 of those punts. Tennessee started on their side of the field majority of the second half. Tennessee almost broke one with Boo Carter in that Georgia game. Brett Thorson saved a touchdown. Boo Carter was not returning punts at that point in the season. Boo Carter led to 2 touchdowns against UTEP on Saturday. He flipped the field multiple times. He got Tennessee within first and goal. He has been a complete revelation as he's just an electric true freshman. Do it all for Tennessee. And that's, I think, going to be a key to this game that I think most people might be overlooking is I think this is going to be a low-scoring game, but I think expecting Tennessee's offense to just have this explosive moment when you got shut out in the first quarter by UTEP, your first 3 drives go nowhere. I think they had 1 first down in their first 3 drives. The longest pass play was 25 yards. Longest rushing play was 27 yards. The explosive plays have not been there at all in November. You go through the stats, it's just not good for Tennessee all across the board. I don't think that's coming against Vanderbilt. So what you have to do to win this game, I think, if you're Tennessee, is I think Boo Carter is going to have to be really good on special teams. I think he's going to have to be really good. He's going to have to get the ball at the Tennessee 30 when Vanderbilt punts and get it to the Vanderbilt 45. Because I think asking this Tennessee offense on the road with this on the line and with where they're at in their passing game to just win this game, going 80 yards multiple times, I'm not sure that's a winning strategy. That's something they struggle with against Arkansas, and it's something they struggle with against Georgia, and they've struggled with, honestly, throughout the course of this year. Boo Carter can change that. Boo Carter, if you give Tennessee's offense 2 drives inside the Vanderbilt 30 because you flipped the field and had a couple 30-yard returns, or even take one to the house like Tennessee did 2 years ago with D. Williams to put them up 21-0 going into the half, that's a game changer for Tennessee. So I think Boo Carter is going to play a pivotal role in this game. Jackson Ross has been, he was pinning Georgia up over and over again. Georgia was going 92 yards, but Tennessee special teams was pinning Georgia up. They just couldn't get off the field. I think you're going to have to do that again. I think Max Gilbert's going to have to stay perfect like he has the last month. But I don't think Tennessee's going to cover this game. I think this is going to be the closest game between Heupel and Lee in their 4 years at Tennessee. I think this is going to be a dogfight, man. I think any Tennessee fan who's hoping that it's going to be a blowout like the last 3 games for Tennessee, I don't think that's coming. I don't think Tennessee's offense is capable of doing that, especially on the road in the SEC. So I think Tennessee wins. Tennessee has to win. They just do. You have to take care of business and beat Vanderbilt to clinch a playoff berth here. Because I think next year it's going to be significantly harder for Tennessee to get back to this point, going to Gainesville, going to Tuscaloosa, getting Georgia at home. Like, I just think it's going to be really hard for Tennessee to find their way back to the CFP next year. You have to take care of business now. So I'm going to say Tennessee wins, but I do think Vanderbilt, there is a path to them winning the time possession battle. Diego Pavia getting some 3rd and 5s and converting, and keeping Vanderbilt's offense on the field, and Tennessee in a position where they just don't have the ball enough to really break this game open. So That's what I think's going to happen in this one. Is I think Vanderbilt's going to keep this close, and I think they're going to have some drives. So you're like, whoa, Vandy just burned like 9 minutes, and they only got a field goal out of it, but it's 10-7 going into the fourth here, the third quarter, and one mistake could end this game. But I'm going to go Tennessee 27, Vanderbilt 23.
That would be another game under 30 points for the Tennessee Volunteers. Only one 30-point game this season. I think when Tennessee is at the best, they have to be forcing turnovers and helping the offense a little bit. Like you saw the Oklahoma game forced 2 or 3 turnovers. Alabama forced a couple turnovers, although I think they turned it over a couple times themselves against Alabama. But I think that's what they're going to have to do. Well, I just don't. I feel like I don't know. We're 12 games in. This is obviously the best Vanderbilt team in years, but I feel like I'm just still not a believer. I don't know. Call me crazy.
It's one of those. I'm telling you. I've said it all week. Talking to Billy Dietrich of VandySports.com today. Like, I'm not saying I have a bad feeling that I think Tennessee's gonna lose, but I think this is gonna be a dogfight. And Diego Pavia is a warrior, man, and they are up for it.
Would you say that it's the sentiment of Vol Nation is that they're nervous about this game?
No, I think they're confident.
Okay. I would be confident too. It feels a lot like Tennessee Vandy feels a lot like Georgia Tech. Like it's just you've kind of been trained to be like we take care of business against these guys.
Here's the thing. This is a good transition because I don't think that's going to be the case on Friday night.
Oh.
I think Georgia's going to blow out Georgia Tech on Friday night. But let's get into your prediction here, Matt Green, with your Georgia Bulldogs Friday night under the lights in Sanford Stadium. Georgia 19-point home favorites to the Georgia Tech Yellow Jackets. What say you, sir?
Yeah, I'm not crazy about the 19-point spread. Obviously, Georgia has not been a good team at covering the spread this year. And I think a lot is made about last year. It was 31-23. I will point out it was 31-10 going into the fourth quarter, or 31-13 going into the fourth quarter. Like it was kind of a blowout, and Tech scored late, to cut to a touchdown. Not just they gave them a good game, right? But it wasn't necessarily as close as it looked. I'm really interested to see what Georgia Tech does at the quarterback position with this Aaron Philo, Haynes King, little Chris Leak, Tim Tebow action. Like Haynes King was like 3 for 3 last week passing.
Well, I think the problem is Haynes King can't throw the football. Like he's backed up. I think it's not a Chris Leak, Tim Tebow. It's like because what Haynes King can't like play. Like I don't understand this at all. Like
that was freshman Tebow though, right? He basically didn't throw.
Yeah, that's true.
But yeah, I mean, I think Aaron Philo was like the highest ranked PFF QB last week. So take that for what it's worth.
And he's an Athens kid. Didn't he go to Prince Ave?
Is that right? Yeah, somewhere. I want to say, was it Bogart? I can't remember. Yeah, I think you're right. Prince Avenue. That's the same one. Vandergrift went to, right? Yeah, I think you're right about that.
I think Vandergrift's dad's the coach.
Yeah, he is. But yeah, so obviously the last time these two teams played, it was a reasonably close game, and Tech ran for 271 yards on Miami. I think that's a huge thing to focus on because Georgia just gave up 225 to UMass. I think Georgia's going to come out with a little bit different level of intensity against Georgia Tech than they did UMass. But I think for that's one point. Is just Georgia going to come out with another level of intensity. But also, I think this Friday thing kind of benefits Georgia. Like, I think this noon, I think there's a lot of Georgia Tech games that are sleepy. Like there's something about, like, Georgia Tech hasn't beaten Georgia in Atlanta since I want to say 1999. And it's something about when it's in Atlanta and it's Bobby Dodd, it's like, this is a Super Bowl for Georgia Tech. It's like a big game atmosphere where when this game's in Athens, it's a noon kickoff. It's like, oh yeah, well, we beat Georgia Tech every year. There's not that same level of intensity for the fans. I think the Friday night will actually bring some extra like juice for this one. And obviously Tech being better brings more juice too. There's just been a lot of bad Georgia Tech teams. You don't get that excited to play. But I think this offense feels like this Georgia offense feels like it's kind of clicking at the right time, like in the second half or the last 3 quarters of the Tennessee game. Obviously, UMass a cupcake, but at least the offense was scoring on almost every drive. This Georgia Tech defense, or Georgia Tech offense, I should say, is 12th in the ACC in scoring. They're last in the ACC. The defense, I should say, is last in the ACC in sacks and the second to last in the ACC in fewest interceptions. So we know that Carson Beck, like that's been the formula, is Beck throwing interceptions and getting pressure on him. And that's just something that Georgia Tech has not done well this year. So it just doesn't seem like Georgia Tech is a great matchup. Like I wasn't crazy about like the like I said, the 19-point spread, but I think I'm still going to pick Georgia to cover that. So I'm going to say 38-17, and Georgia does cover that 19-point spread. I don't feel like it's going to be an easy 38-17. Like I respect Georgia Tech. I could see this being, 24-17 at halftime. Well, shoot, knowing Georgia, it's going to be 10-3 at halftime. But I could see it being a close halftime game, but that Georgia just kind of breaks open in the second half. I would like to see a quick start because this offense has at least got off to a quick start last week.
Yeah, I just think a lot of people are looking at this Tech thing. It's like, oh, they're feisty. And one of the things about Brent Key, to his credit, is he's gotten up for these big games. Undefeated against Miami now, 2-0 there. For Brent Key, he gets up for the big ones, clearly. Big win on Thursday. They got against NC State, and it's an interesting system with Philo and Haynes King, and maybe that makes it more difficult for Georgia to prepare. And I wonder, too, like how much of it the last 2 years has been, because I don't know, has Buster Faulkner been the OC the last 2 or just last year?
I thought last year was his first year.
Okay.
So the last 2, yeah. That would be this year and last year.
I meant the previous 2, because Tech has played them kind of well the last 2 games before this.
Let me look. I think it was
just
the year, yeah, because Monken was still on the staff in 2022. Yeah. So I think this 2 years or Bobo has been the OC. Those are the 2 years.
Okay. I'm sure that probably plays into it a little bit. Faulkner knows Kirby. There's a good history there, obviously being on the Georgia staff. Good. He has a good feel for what Georgia's throwing at him. But I don't think this is going to go well for Tech. So Georgia Tech is 62nd in points per drive. They struggled against a bad NC State team at home. Like, it was a good story they won. It's like Tennessee thrashed NC State, and that was a much healthier, better version of NC State 2 months ago. That feels like forever ago now.
Is that now an indictment now? Like Tennessee abused.
Well, Tennessee, it's an indictment that if your defense got thrashed by Tennessee's offense. Yeah. At this point, like that is an indictment on where your program is. If Tennessee's offense sliced and diced you the way they did NC State and Charlotte. But all that to be said, Georgia Tech 62nd in points per drive. Georgia's 18th. Georgia Tech is they're nearly 50% third down conversion rate against ranked teams, which is really good. They're number 5 nationally in turnover margin this month, so they've had a lot of turnover luck, which has been good. But here's the key stat to me, and this will be the nail in the coffin for Tech. Georgia's number 1 in college football in the red zone in November. They're 17-17. They're driving down the field and they're scoring, and they're not playing with their food. They're just great teams, elite teams don't mess around in the red zone. When Tennessee their offense was really, really firing in 2022. They were a really good red zone team. Princeton fan company. They were really good in the red zone. Everyone remembers the flashy plays with Jalen Hyde and company, but they were also elite in the red zone. Georgia is elite in the red zone right now, and I think Tech's offense, it's cute, but I think this is something that this is where the cuteness ends, I think. I think Georgia Tech gets steamrolled in this game. I think it's the most lopsided Tech-Georgia game in a while. I think Georgia's motivated for this one. They got the SEC title game going. They didn't play well against UMass. They gave up, like, the missed tackles and just what that Georgia defense looked like last Saturday. That's tough for Tech because I'm sure it was a tough week for the Georgia defense based on what they put on film against the Minutemen. All this just screams this is going to be rough for Tech, and the quarterback situation I just don't think sustainable against Georgia in this front. So give me Georgia 48, Tech 17.
All right, that's a little surprising. I definitely thought you were going to pick the Jackets to keep this one close.
Man, that NC State team's bad, and I think this quarterback situation is just not good. And I don't think there's I don't think there's a lot of juice on that Tech offense. Like all this stuff, like it's just not a lot of juice. And I think Georgia's just going to run them out of the building gradually. I think Georgia's defense is going to get up for this one after what they did. Michigan at Ohio State. The Buckeyes 21-point home favorites. Matt Green. I think Ryan Day is going to get this one. What say you?
Yeah, I think so. Ryan Day is obviously Michigan's won 3 straight. Jim Harbaugh is no longer there. Ryan Day 1-3 in this rivalry. I don't know if you saw that Michigan-Indiana game a couple weeks ago, but that was just like a straight up rock fight. Like just Big Ten football in the worst way imaginable. Just the 2 yards in a cloud of dust. The total offense in that game, Indiana had 246 yards and Michigan had 206. Like Ohio State abused that team, and they did not. Granted, they didn't do much offensively against Indiana. Michigan didn't do much offensively against Indiana either, or Indiana, I should say, Indiana didn't do much against Michigan either offensively, but they still did enough. Like Michigan's not going to score double digits against this Ohio State team. Like this is. And just what this means to Ohio State too, like Ryan Day comparing this to like losing his father and stuff, like losing to Michigan is like that important. I think I think they don't take their foot off the gas, and this one has the potential to get ugly. And let me see what I wrote my score down. I got Ohio State. I'm gonna say 31-7 because this. I mean, just in general, this Ohio State offense hasn't been great this year. Like this is their lowest scoring offense, I think, in the last, I don't know, like decade or so, these past 2 years. But so the offense just isn't capable, I think, of just going for like 50 or something. If they were, I think they would in this game. So I think they're just going to take care of Michigan. It's going to be 31-7, and it's not going to be very close.
I tend to agree here. I mean, it's funny because we said before the year, it's like Ryan Day's got to have the streak's got to end this year with how Michigan's going to be. Like if not this year, when does it end? But what's funny is like he could lose this game, and guess what? They could still win the national title because they still would make the playoff. They would still have everything in front of them. Like we say that before the year, but the 12-team playoff kind of protects Ryan Day a little bit coming in this game because yeah, it would suck in the moment. And I'm sure a lot of Ohio State fans would lose their minds for the weekend. But then you're like, oh, we're still in the playoff and we could still win a national title. So it's like. We said that. I mean, the seat would be a lot hotter depending on how he performed in the playoff. But Ryan Day, he would. It is funny. We talked about before the year. It's like you got to do it or this is it. It's like, well, actually not because they're going to be in the playoff regardless. So he could actually find a way out of this. But
this rivalry,
I don't think that's what's going to happen here. Auburn has a better FPI right now than Michigan. Michigan's just a 500 team. Michigan is 60th in FPI on offense. OSU's defense, as you talked about here, is just playing another level. They're elite all across the board, especially their front seven. Caleb Downs is playing really well on the back end. They have that one corner who's getting flagged all the time that they were talking about on the broadcast in that game. Poor guy. He got flagged for multiple holding and defensive pass interference in that opening drive by Indiana. They scored their lone touchdown on. But OSU, number one scoring defense nationally. And they've got the juice, man. Did you see Will Howard's cigarette stomp after winning that game?
I did.
There's some juice there. That is stuff you want to see. Like that is national champion swagger that you've got to see from your quarterback. Where you're like, okay, the moment's not gonna be too big for him when he's in these big battles. Because I think he was pretty amped up and everything else. He was in it for the Oregon game. It didn't go his way at the end, but. I don't know. Will Howard has more juice and more fire than I thought he did coming out of Kansas State. I'm curious how this unfolds. I'm buying a lot of Will Howard stock down the stretch here, Matt Green.
Is that a win for Indiana? Like the fact that Ohio State feels the need to like talk shit to you that like, hey guys, we made it. Like when you were saying early in the season, like, you know, now Arkansas, we're a team that's worthy of rushing the field when we lose. Like, hey, that's improvement. Like Indiana's like, hey, Ohio State actually cared about this game, guys. Like we've made it.
That is true. Give me Ohio State. Michigan's defense is still good, so I think Michigan will keep this relatively close. Give me, that's a lot of points. 21 is just too much in this rivalry that Ryan Day has lost 3 times. Give me Ohio State 31, Michigan 13.
The thing is, too, it's like if Georgia had beaten Alabama this year, if Kirby never beat Saban and then beats DeBoer and finally beats Alabama, like obviously, and especially maybe it's the SEC championship, maybe there's bigger stakes or something. Georgia, it's still gonna feel good, but you'd be lying to yourself if you were like, it feels a little different to not beat Saban though. Like Ryan Day, he'll get this monkey off his back. Michigan, Ohio State is big regardless, but you didn't get Harbaugh. Oh, you got him one time, but like Harbaugh is the one that beat you 3 straight times, and then he got out of there. It'll feel good, but it'll still sting a little bit that you didn't get to get Harbaugh back.
That's interesting. I'd like to know what the fan base thinks about that. That'd be interesting because I don't know which way they would go on that.
I mean, they obviously just want to beat Michigan. That's all that matters. But it's still like Harbaugh being a Michigan guy too. Like he's not just the Michigan coach. Like that's got to be a guy you hate as an Ohio State fan, and for him to for him to win, get his sanctions, and just head to the NFL, and you can't beat him again. That's got to be tough.
I think that would be an interesting poll. Next up, South Carolina at Clemson. Clemson, 3-point home dogs. What say you, Matt Green?
Clemson was won 8 of the last 9 against South Carolina. However, Shane Beamer has never lost in Death Valley. How about that? Winsipedia, they need to update their site here. It says last year's game was played in Columbia, Missouri. I don't think that's accurate. I think they played in Columbia, South Carolina. But they do great work at Winsipedia. I'm a frequent user of the site. Clemson's FPI losses this year were to the number 5 Georgia and number 13 Louisville. Their highest wins on the season, again according to ESPN FPI, were Virginia Tech at 35 and Pitt at 48. South Carolina is 16 right now. Like, I just don't know if this team is good at all, to be honest. Like, where they're sitting at 9-2, they're good, right? They're fine. But they've lost to the only teams that are really like, and Louisville's not even a real contender either, right? It's just a good team. And they lost by multiple scores at home too. So, and that game was, I think the score ended up being a little closer than the actual game was, if I'm not mistaken too. And obviously Georgia blew them out. So I just don't really think Clemson is legit. Like, they obviously have had some good road wins down the stretch here, but in Pitt, I'm not going to like just scoff at that win. Were they undefeated or 1 loss at that point?
I think they were 1 loss at that point.
But this South Carolina team is just, I feel like I'm just buying them. Like, this point in the season, they just feel like they're playing their best ball. And I think South Carolina is going to go on the road and get this one. I'm going to say 33-30. Gamecocks, get it done on the road.
Interesting. I did not think we would agree here, but I agree as well. I think, we've talked about it.
A lot of agreeing on rivalry week.
We are agreeing. We against the spread a little bit different, but agreeing across the board here thus far. But we'll see. Still a couple more games to get through here. South Carolina is they're playing really, really good football. You can make the case they've played the most consistent good football of anyone in the SEC over the last month. But like you said, and what we talk about on this program, every game matters. Like, you can't discount the losses early in the season. Like, it's awesome you're playing great down the stretch, but every game has to matter in the regular season. And how you look at the beginning of the year has to matter. Lenora Sellers is a dude. Getting Rocket Sanders healthy has been great. Their defensive line, obviously, with Kennard and Stewart have been fantastic. But South Carolina's offense, number 2 in the country this month. This is a gigantic game, I think, for both programs. Clemson, though, here's what stands out to me and why I just don't think Clemson's going to handle this game well at all. Clemson's defense 61st against FBS teams with winning records this season. Clemson's they're not showing up against the big dogs. And I don't think this week's going to be any different. I mean, they should have lost to Pitt. Like, Pitt had that game, and I mean, Cade Klubnik made a great play late with that QB scramble to put them in position to win that football game. But that was one of the worst officiated games you'll see in college football this year, if you remember how that game went. But for both sides. But point being, I'm not a believer in this Clemson team. I'm not a believer in them being able to win anything of substance this year. I'm a big believer in what South Carolina is doing is sustainable, at least for another year, and what they're doing on the stretch is real. South Carolina is playing extremely good football. I think they're going to be motivated for this one because they're playing for a potential playoff spot. Like, they would need a bunch of help. I get it. But you can still sell that in the locker room this week. You can sell that, like, hey, if we take care of business one last time, and if we put a hurt on Clemson, a team that's slightly ahead of us, that's our in-state rival, we have a good shot because they're the first team in right now. Like, they're the first team. If someone stumbles ahead of them, they're in. Why not us? Why not us if we don't pound Clemson down the stretch here and put us in a position to be that last team in? Because like you said, college basketball, that's how they look. Is like, how are you playing down the stretch? And maybe that's how the committee looks at it. Does the committee overlook those losses early for South Carolina because you're like, that wasn't the team? Because that's our opinion. We don't know what the committee will see with South Carolina if they blow out Clemson here at the final week of the season. I think South Carolina is going to get up for this game. I think South Carolina is going to take this game personally. I think this is going to be a nightmare situation for Dabo and Clemson because they need this one, and I'm curious and this is how I kind of want to end it, is I think South Carolina wins this game. I think South Carolina wins 38, Clemson 20. I think I think South Carolina puts a hurt on Clemson in this game. South Carolina's offense, I think, is legit. Their defense is top 20 in the country. They are nearly top 10-ish team on both sides of the ball right now. They're going to put a hurting on Clemson, I think, in this game. And then you're like, okay, if you're a Clemson fan, you're like, what was the fun moment here? We blasted some nobodies, and then every big game we didn't show up for, really, unless you want to throw Pitt. But Pitt might finish 7-5 here. Pitt might finish 7-5. Matt
run
Green
versus Pitt, that was fun.
Pitt's gonna finish 7-5.
Is that right?
Yeah, Pitt's on a huge slide right now, Matt Green. Ooh. Pitt has fallen off the deep end here, so that's not even a great win anymore. Clemson, like, if you're a Clemson fan, you're like, what was that? That wasn't fun at all. We never felt like we were a legitimate contender. I don't know. Like, in your opinion, though, is this a bigger game for Dabo and Clemson, or is this a bigger game for Beamer and South Carolina?
That's an interesting question I haven't thought about, to be honest, because obviously I think off the top of your head, it's easily bigger for Beamer because Dabo's won national championships and everything, but Dabo's also like desperately trying to cling on to like being this powerhouse program. And a second win for Beamer over Dabo could start to feel like the changing of a guard. Like they could start to feel like they're the better program in the state, not just the better team. So I think it's massive. We're also talking a lot of negatives. SMU and Miami could still lose this week, and Clemson could wind up in the ACC championship, or one of those teams could lose, and they could still find themselves in the ACC championship and get like a top 4 seed or something. So this season is not over. That probably speaks to the flaw of the playoff format more than anything. But I think at the end of the day, I think it's bigger for Beamer because like this is kind of their potential to like arrive on the national scene, and maybe it's a big enough win to jump them over Ole Miss and Alabama, who aren't playing their best right now. Like, and the committee could kind of like, what is the thing I always say? Like, if all is equal, then we'll go to head. Well, maybe this win over Clemson is enough to all isn't equal anymore. Maybe South Carolina's resume is now better. Maybe A&M beats Texas and is in the SEC championship. Now blasting them at home looks a little more impressive on South Carolina's resume. So those are two things that could kind of boost South Carolina's resume this week. So, and then not to mention A&M could win the SEC. What does that do to the opinion of South Carolina? So I think this game has to be bigger for Beamer just because it's an opportunity that South Carolina has not had in a long time.
100%. Next up, Texas at Texas A&M, sir. A&M 5 point home dogs. What say you, sir?
All right, sir. So a lot has been made about Texas's schedule this year. This is their third SEC road game of the season. The other two, they beat Vanderbilt by 7, beat Arkansas by 10, did not cover in either of those games. Do you want to know SEC standings wise who Texas has beaten this year? Texas has beaten the 10th, 11th, 12th, 13th, 15th, and 16th teams in the SEC standings to this point in the season. It's almost made up. Like I don't know how anyone got this type of schedule. And then when they played the second place team, Georgia, they got dominated at home, and now they're playing the third place team. So I just worry so much about how this team is just the lack of being battle tested, and just the Arkansas a couple weeks ago, just not looking impressive. Kentucky at home last week. Yeah, they won by 17, but it just wasn't impressive, and it hasn't been impressive all year. A&M has obviously had their flaws as well, a 3-loss team, but we've seen the chaos for one, and we've also seen how tough it is to go on the road in the SEC and in college football in general. And I think I just don't trust Texas. So home dog of the week, Texas A&M Aggies win this one, go to the SEC championship. I'm going to say 31-30. Texas A&M wins this game.
Interesting. Wait, what was your final score?
31-30.
Okay. I hope it's something like that. I hope it's just craziness like we got with Auburn and Texas A&M on Saturday. But we'll see. I think for me, this is, like you said, where if you're Texas, all you're hearing this week is about your resume. The numbers love you. Like everything Texas related is just screaming Texas. Texas is number 1 in FPI, ESPN's Football Power Index. They're number 1 in scoring defense versus teams with a winning record this season. A&M is 55th in yards per play. I think people have kind of looked at like A&M's offense, and Colin Klein, who I like as an offensive coordinator, like, oh, they figured some stuff out, going to Marcel Reed. But it's been back and forth for a reason, and it's just, I don't think this A&M offense is great. And they're talking about like, oh, the 12th minute's going to be a crazy environment on Saturday or on Friday. And look, it is going to be a crazy environment.
No, this is Saturday.
Saturday, yeah. And Notre Dame also opened up the year and won here. So it's not like this is an unwinnable situation for Texas. Like, I understand the hate is real. I understand it's a different kind of situation, but Notre Dame 3rd in FPI right now in their Football Power Index. So depending on what everything about Notre Dame, that I think at the beginning of the year we did not think they would be that high up in the margins, everything else, but they kind of have a similar thing with Texas of who they actually beaten, but they're steamrolling more folks than Texas. But the numbers just love Texas, and I'm not a believer in this A&M offense to this point. I'm also kind of concerned with, that was the worst kind of game you could play the week before playing a physical team like Texas, because now you're going up against maybe the most talented roster out in the SEC this season, and you're going to, like, you just played 4 overtimes total against another physical, powerful team in Auburn, and you lost. I don't know. I think that they're just coming out of that game beaten up and bruised and everything else. I think that's going to be tough, getting Texas and getting up off the mat. I think this is the ultimate Texas flex game, because I think they've heard it for weeks that their season comes down to this game. They win and they're in this title game, and they get a rematch against Georgia where they're embarrassed at home. I think Texas shows up for this game, and I think Texas wins comfortably. So I think Texas wins and covers. I think this is one of those where you're like, A&M's just not ready yet. Doesn't mean A&M won't be ready, but I don't think this is the stage for them, and I think it's a bad opportunity for them coming off that Auburn game a week ago. Give me Texas 34, A&M 20.
Ooh, 2 touchdowns. How dare you
I think
pick
Texas kind of
home
cruises
dog
here.
of the week there? I would say, obviously, the last time these two teams played, it was 2011 before A&M joined the conference. I would say A&M has been looking forward to this game since November 11th, 2012. You know what happened? That was the day after their Johnny Manziel and the Aggies beat Alabama. That was the day they were like, I I really want to play Texas again. We were getting kind of owned by Texas. I really want to play them now that we have a legit program. We can recruit SEC players. Well, they got them.
We got him. All that being said here, I'm really, really excited to see how this game goes. I am very, very excited for it.
Texas Georgia is a better SEC championship. I think everyone agrees with that in terms of, dollars and cents and national brands, 1-loss team versus 2-loss team, A&M kind of throws off the entire playoff, and then if they win, they get a bye. Like, they could either be the number 20 next week, they could be maybe out of the top 25, or they could be potential first round bye in the college football playoff. It's a lot of scenarios still on the board for the Aggies.
Absolutely. Next up, Matt Green. Let's go to Oklahoma at LSU. LSU 6-point home favorites. What say you, sir?
I'm a vibes guy. I'm not a big X's and O's, more of a vibes guy, and I'm not liking the vibes around LSU right now, but I had my rule last week, and I excluded Oklahoma from that, so I apologize, Oklahoma, but everybody gets one, and they got one. They got Alabama last week. I just don't see them doing it twice in a row. I do think this is going to be close because, like I said, the vibes, I don't really trust LSU. I feel like LSU, I don't know, they could be on the brink of like quitting on the coach. Like, I'm not really even sure what's happening at LSU, right? And that's just pure speculation. I don't know anything about behind the scenes and what's happening. It just feels like really bad vibes at LSU right now. So I'm going to pick them to win, but nothing impressive. So I'm going to say like 21-20, 23-20. What's that spread? Is it 3 or something? 6? Yeah, 23-20. LSU wins this, so Oklahoma covers, but LSU gets the win.
Yeah, I think LSU could quietly win 2 good games against solid teams down the stretch with Vanderbilt and Oklahoma. Like, it's not flashy or anything else, but Brian Kelly really needs to right the ship here. And Oklahoma got their one, as you talked about throughout the year, as everybody gets one. Oklahoma got their one at home against Alabama last week. I think LSU finishes strong here down the stretch. So passing game was rough though, like Vanderbilt, but LSU won close, and LSU's offense to me is the weirder thing. Is we've talked about the defense for a while, and I still think Blake Baker is going to get that figured out. The LSU passing game and just the offense as a whole has really struggled down the stretch. So I wonder what that looks like this offseason. Brian Kelly makes changes there. Or Garrett Nussmeier is the hardest person to get a good read on, I think, quarterback-wise in this conference. So maybe he has a good final game here for LSU, but we shall see. I think this is one where it's asking a lot for Oklahoma to then go on the road and win, because this Oklahoma passing game was not existent. Like, Jackson Arnold, I don't think it's sustainable for him to carry the ball 20-plus times on the road in Baton Rouge and steal another win from LSU and Alabama in back-to-back weeks. Seems unlikely to me. So give me LSU. Let's go LSU 35, Oklahoma 17.
Ooh, taking care of business.
I don't think this offense travels. Arkansas at Mizzou. 3-point home favorites are the Mizzou Tigers. What say you, Matt Green?
Missouri has gone 8-2 against Arkansas since joining the SEC. Fun fact for you, Missouri has played one road game since September 21st. When they beat Auburn. The one road game they played was Mississippi State, which was like a month ago. So this schedule has been really kind to them, and they also haven't really taken care of business. Ole Miss, LSU, both at home, Texas at home. None of those were wins. I feel like I was holding on to Arkansas being solid for a while, and I just don't think this team's very good. And going on the road, I still just don't trust them. So give me Missouri to win this one and cover. I'll say 28-24. Missouri wins this one.
I could see that. Mizzou, this is a hard one to figure out, though, because like Arkansas is a weird team in that they're number one in 10-plus yard plays of offense at home in the country. No one has more 10-plus yard plays of offense at home than Arkansas. On the road, there's a huge drop-off. But then you look at Mizzou. Mizzou's not a great home offense team. Like they're 68th in 10+ yard plays at home. Missouri is 77th in yards per play this season, but they are 14th in FBS and turnover margin against unranked teams. So I think that will be helpful for them in this game against Arkansas. It seems like a bad matchup. I think if this was in Arkansas, I would pick Arkansas to win this game. But I think being at Mizzou, this is going to be ugly. But I think Mizzou takes care of business down the stretch and wins. But I wouldn't be surprised if this game is close in the fourth quarter. And this one is absolutely one I could see Arkansas stealing. But I'm not going to do it. I think it's going to be ugly. Like this will be one of the uglier games in the SEC this weekend from both sides. So give me Mizzou 24, Arkansas 20. Just say Mizzou covers.
Arkansas is already bowl eligible, right?
Yes.
Yeah, they're 6-5. Okay. So looks like Auburn is the only team in the SEC that can get bowl eligible with a win this week. So it's a nice segue there for you.
There you go. Matt Green, Auburn at Alabama does not have the same juice it had. Like this is the least juice Auburn Alabama's had in how long do you think? Where Alabama's an 11.5 point home favorite. When was the last time the game just didn't felt this irrelevant in the Iron Bowl?
That's a good point because I mean 2019 was the last year that it really Alabama wasn't playing for anything, right? I mean that was when Tua was out and everything. But it was such an amazing game, and that was like still a good Auburn team that it was like still had a big time game atmosphere. And Auburn just they have like two defensive touchdowns. Is that the game that what's the dude's name? Smoke Monday had like the 100-yard pick six or something in that one. You know what I'm talking about? And there was also the play where Xavier McKinney got like his helmet knocked off too. I think that was the same year. So I feel like you have to go back a while. Probably pre-Saban, but Bama's won 4 straight in the series, 8 of the last 10. I feel like you kind of throw everything out now that Saban's not there. You know, it's kind of unprecedented. Like this is the only 3 loss regular season. Oh no, I should say there was 2. The last 3 loss regular season for Alabama during the Saban year was 2010, and then you got to go back to year 1 for anything more than losing any more than 3 games. So this is a really weird territory for this game. For one, what is this, like the 6th or 7th game we've picked? And now we're doing Alabama Auburn. Like this is usually the game of the weekend. But I think in the past it's like Alabama had a terrible performance last week. So they're gonna bounce back this week. I feel like I'm just kind of done like believing this team's just gonna be better. So I just don't really trust them. Like I think they're gonna win this game. Because it's not like I trust Auburn or anything, especially on the road. But I just think this Alabama offense has been flawed at times. And I think this is going to be another just really close game. And I think they do get it done. But I'm going to take Auburn to cover the 11.5. So I'll say Alabama wins this 27-23.
Interesting. Wait, hold on. Say that one more time.
Alabama wins 27-23.
Okay, I thought I heard Auburn 20. I was like, whoa,
Yeah.
You just buried the lead here. I thought you just
Alabama
went Auburn
wins, Auburn covers.
Okay, you scared me for a second. I think Alabama has to win this game. Like they do. We talk about like this is not going to have a lot of like ammunition and stuff, but like Alabama still has a lot to play for because not a lot of craziness has to happen for them to still find their way into the CFP based on what we saw this past weekend. It's very possible, a little bit more chaos. They just need some help in the ACC, funny enough, to find their way back in. But Alabama, I think this is one of those where Jalen Milroe, I think this is going to be a great Jalen Milroe game, is my gut here. Auburn fares worse in Tuscaloosa than vice versa. Auburn should have won this game, as we talked about last year. Like that was their shot in Jordan Hare. I don't think it's going to go this way. And Alabama coming off a loss, I think they're going to be amped up, motivated for this one to finish strong. Kalen DeBoer just doesn't lose a lot of regular season games. I talk about it. 9-3 is as low as he'll go there. Auburn, you talk about everybody gets one. Auburn got their one last week against A&M, so a lot of momentum with Hugh Freeze and company going into next year. but I just don't see it for Auburn here in this one. I think this is a big Jalen Milroe game where he runs for over 100 and Alabama rolls. So give me Alabama. Let's go Alabama 38, Auburn 20.
30, you say 38-20?
Mm-hmm.
Oh, okay. Big time. And just to maybe flex my knowledge here of the 2019 Iron Bowl. This was the game. Smoke Monday had a 29-yard pick six, and Zacoby McClain had a 100-yard pick six in this game. And then it was Sean Shivers on the 11-yard touchdown run where he lowered his head and knocked off Xavier McKinney's helmet. So it was just a 48-45 big time win for the Tigers. That's probably the last time they were a good football team, right? 2019.
Yeah. Goodness gracious. There we go. Next up here, Matt Green. Notre Dame at USC. The Trojans only a 7.5-point home dog. You haven't mentioned your home dog of the week yet, have you?
No, A&M was the home dog of the week.
A&M was the home dog. Okay.
And I thought about it, sir. I wanted to do it. The season of chaos. It feels like this Notre Dame team, I still don't trust them. Like, they've blown out all the inferior teams they've played. And USC isn't a giant killer or anything this year. But Jaden Maeva, is that how you pronounce the name?
I think it's Mavia, but I could be wrong.
However you pronounce it. He's been the starter the last few weeks. Had a couple of good games, or at least one of those games was pretty good. I think UCLA was okay. I think they give them a game. I think this is going to go down to the wire. I wanted to pick USC to upset Notre Dame, but I don't think I can pick it. I think Notre Dame pulls this one out. I'm going to say Notre Dame wins this one. I'm going to say 34-30. A little bit of a high scoring one for USC in 2024. And that's 7.5, right? Yeah. So I'll take USC to cover, but Notre Dame to pull this one out.
Interesting. It's one of those, I think we all want to make this close. I think you would have liked to I think USC's defense has a good chance of keeping this close. And that's, I think, why this line is 7.5. You talk about making the change from Miller Moss to Jaden Mavia. It's almost been identical. I don't think there's been an upgrade going from Miller to Jaden here, based on what I've seen. And I just think it's kind of wild, but USC's kind of limping down the stretch with their defense and kind of searching for answers with their offense because their running game's been good. What's his name? Transfer from Mississippi State, who's been really good for them. What is his name? But he's been good for the Trojans down the stretch and really all year. But is it Woody? I can't remember off the top of my head what his name is. But
I'll look it up for you.
I would like to believe that Woody Marks. That's who I was looking up. Yeah, he's over 1,000 yards, 5.7 yards per attempt, 9 TDs. He's been good for USC. But that's been about it. It hasn't just been an explosive, typical Lincoln Riley offense all year long. But the D'Anton Lynn hire, pulling him away from UCLA, has paid dividends for USC, and they've been in the lead in so many fourth quarters that I think USC could absolutely be in the lead here because Notre Dame, on the road, they haven't played anybody. Notre Dame's beating the crap out of some bad teams, which is all they can really do. But this is also a team that lost at home to Northern Illinois, so anything's possible with this Notre Dame team. But they also went to A&M and won in the opener, and that turned out to be a really big win for the Fighting Irish. So I think there's some realness to Notre Dame. I think their secondary is elite. I don't think USC's offense is going to be able to do anything against this Notre Dame defense, is my gut. Notre Dame's number 1 in FEI in defense. They're number 2 in road defense, scoring-wise. I think this is a bad matchup for USC. And I think Notre Dame is going to close out here 11-1 and win comfortably. I think they win and cover. Give me Notre Dame 27, USC 10.
Some big point spreads.
I think this is a separation Saturday type deal. I don't think there's going to be as many down to the wire type games here, but we'll see. And we have some early ones. I have Tennessee, Vandy going down to the wire. I think Michigan I have covering. I think Texas A&M, Texas could be that.
Damn, I just looked at that. Yeah, Tennessee. That's the only game you have being a 1-score game to this point.
Yeah, and I think that's where I'm leaning right now. But speaking of 1-score games, I actually have one next up. As we run through, let's burn through these final 3 because I don't think either of us will have a bunch on this. Nebraska, Iowa Iowa 3.5-point home favorite, sir. What say you?
Trust the Cornhuskers, sir. Caleb Johnson and this running game, number 1 run offense in the Big Ten this year. Did I say Cornhuskers?
Yeah, you said trust the Cornhuskers.
I said Cornhuskers.
I was like, whoa.
I meant Hawkeyes. Trust the Hawkeyes, sir. Number 1 rushing offense in the Big Ten this year. I think Iowa gets it done at home. I'm going to say 26-17. Iowa wins this one.
Okay. I thought you were on Nebraska. I was like, we're going to finally disagree. But no, I actually have Iowa winning this too down the stretch. They have a Doak Award finalist here, Caleb Johnson. He's been great for them down the stretch. They're really banged up at quarterback. They're on like their 3rd quarterback this season. And they
don't need one.
Huh?
They don't need one.
That's really true with them. But Dana Holgerson now calling plays, who came in a couple weeks ago for Nebraska. They beat Wisconsin last week. I could see Nebraska stealing this, but Iowa at home, I think they take care of business. Give me Iowa 27, Nebraska 24. Nebraska barely covers.
All right. Put it on the board.
Kansas at Baylor. Sneaky. I think this has sneaky game of the week potential. Matt Green. Kansas, the giant killers of the last 3 weeks. Baylor, no one's looking, but Baylor's offense is rolling people. Sawyer Robertson is a legitimate dude. Jake Spavital has been a huge OC hire for Dave Aranda at Baylor. Baylor's won 7 games. They can close up here with 8 wins, and no one's really noticed because we had Aranda in the hot seat before the year. But
true,
they're rolling, and I'm curious. Does Kansas keep it going? Do they stop Baylor's acceleration here down the stretch, or does Baylor finally put a halt to this incredible 3 weeks from Lance Leipold and prevent Kansas, I believe, from going bowling? Because they need to win this game to go bowling, right?
Oh yeah, they're 5-6 right now.
Yeah.
I think I just trust the giant killers, sir. Like they're just the Jayhawks. This is why people thought they were supposed to be good this season, right? They were like the media, I think, had them like 3rd or 4th preseason in the Big 12. I feel like they have a lot of talent in terms of this conference, and they're finally starting to click at the right time. Yeah, I'm gonna have to pick them again for a 4th straight win for the Jayhawks. Give me Kansas 31-27.
There you go.
On the road.
I am gonna go Baylor wins at home. Jake Spavital and Sawyer Robertson keep it going. They end the Kansas streak here at home. So give me Baylor. Let's go Baylor 42, Kansas 38.
All right, put it on the board.
And final one, I saved the best for last, Matt Green. Syracuse with a chance at 9-3 here. You were on this before the year that they were going to push for 10 wins and maybe potentially get to the ACC title game before the year. Miami at home. Or they get Miami at home. Miami has played with some fire here of late, Matt Green. What say you? 11-point home dogs, the Orangemen. I'm surprised this is not your home dog of the week, sir.
Oh, I thought about it, sir. This is a very dangerous spot. The most underrated game of the entire weekend, as far as I'm concerned. I'm glad you saved the best one for last. I'm not necessarily saying Syracuse is going to win this game, but it has massive implications. Like, if Syracuse wins, all of a sudden Miami goes from being in every single week they're the number 3 seed in this bracket to they're out of the tournament, they're out of the ACC championship, and the season's over. Like, so the implications around this game are just insane. I don't feel like anyone's really talking about it, especially a team going on a road to an 8-win team. Like, this is not a bad team in the ACC, and it's not like Syracuse has not been challenged by worse teams than Syracuse. It's not like Miami has not been challenged by worse teams than Syracuse this year. So what if I told you coming into this game, or what if I told you that this game featured the nation's leading passer? Would that surprise you? You'd be like, no, Cam Ward, this guy's having a great season. And he is not the nation's leading passer, sir. He is number 2 in the country in yards. That would be Kyle McCord, number 1 in the country in passing yards. I had to double take when I saw that stat. I was just shocked after the Honda McCord that people talked about leading Ohio State's offense a year ago. He threw the 5 picks against Pitt what was it, 3 pick sixes in that game. Since then, last 4 games, thrown 7 touchdowns, 1 interception. I think Syracuse is going to give Miami everything they want in this game, but I think Cam Ward and maybe those ACC officials will find a way to keep Miami in there. They're their golden goose, and Miami pulls this one out. I'm going to say Miami 35-31. In the final minute, I think Miami scores a touchdown in this game to win it.
We disagree. I think Syracuse wins this game outright. I think this is a terrible last game for Miami. On the road, in the Carrier Dome, whatever they're calling it. Like, Miami's a good team.
Dome anymore. Yeah, you're right.
They don't have to win this game. Miami can absolutely still get in with the way everything's shaken out, where I think Miami, we'll see if they still do, but they still have
you think they can get in if they lose this game?
Yes.
No, I don't know, man. Their resume's too iffy.
They have the number one. They have a Heisman finalist. They have the nation. Yeah. I mean, I think they have the juice. I think Miami will still find a way in if they lose this game, which I do. So Miami, 38-34. They needed a lot of help against Virginia Tech. We remember how that crazy ending happened. Feels like forever ago. Cal, 39-38. Louisville, 52-45. Florida State, who's awful, only 36-14. They were down at halftime to Duke. They ended up winning by 3 scores, 21-3 in the fourth quarter there. Georgia Tech just beats them outright. Wake Forest was in a dogfight with them at the half. It was 20-14 Miami at the half. At 22 points in the fourth quarter. Miami plays with their food until the fourth quarter, and they turn on the Jets. I don't think you're going to be able to do that against Fran Brown and the Syracuse Orangemen, sir. I think this is just a really well-coached team. I think they are going to just come out firing in this one. They have juice. You talk about Kyle McCord playing his best ball right now. I think this is going to be a show. A lot of people are not going to be tuned into this game this weekend because there's a lot of good stuff going on. Tune into Syracuse Miami because I think this is going to be an instant classic from both sides offensively. But I think the home team is going to win this game outright. I think Syracuse upsets Miami 42-38 Syracuse.
Say 42-38?
Yep. I can't believe you didn't have the belief to give Fran Brown, the Syracuse Orangemen, the win. I can't believe I had to do it.
I thought about it for sure. Texas A&M is the official home dog of the week, but if Syracuse and USC win, Zeus is counting those as well.
Miami is they're my upset this weekend. Like they're the big domino that falls. I think Miami and Clemson lose, and then SMU loses to Miami in the ACC title game, and there's a lot of chaos.
No, Miami loses, Clemson's in.
Oh yeah, well even if Clemson loses,
no, it's a non-conference game this week.
That's true. I guess it doesn't matter. Okay, well then still, God, that would be weird. Then SMU beats Clemson.
That's what I'm saying. No one's even really thinking about Clemson being in the ACC championship right now. And who's SMU got this week? We didn't even talk about them.
It's a nobody, I think, right?
I feel like was it like Stanford or something?
Noted rival you want to finish the year with.
Cal. SMU plays Cal the last week, which
noted ACC game.
Of course. Yeah, it was funny looking at these scoreboard, like the Big Ten, like going to the Big Ten tab to see USC Notre Dame. It's like, what is happening? But yeah, it's I'm glad you picked it. I thought about it. I'm glad one of us is on the record. The only games we disagree with overall on the weekend are Texas A&M, Baylor, Kansas, and Syracuse Miami, which we don't even really disagree with Syracuse Miami. I'm here for the Cuse getting it done. So we'll see. It should be a good. That's 3:30 kick opposite Auburn, Alabama, and then you got the noon slate with South Carolina, Clemson, Ohio State, Michigan. Tennessee's at that noon slate, right? SEC Network.
Wait, say that again.
Tennessee's playing at that noon slate too,
yes.
Right? Yeah, that's why I love. There's a lot of Georgia fans that were upset about the Friday night. I low key love the Friday night. Like it just. There's a lot of good rivalry games, and Georgia usually got pushed to the back burner on the networks. It was always getting that noon SEC network or something like that. So I like the Friday night. Get the rest of those games, rivalry games on Saturday.
There you go. Matt Green, always a pleasure, and I'll talk to you in a couple days.
Yes, sir.
Nicely done, nephew. The Chase Thomas Podcast. Hell yeah.